Well, hello, Virginia Union University. So grateful to be here. So grateful for all of these graduates. Please be seated. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Isn't this a great day? Come on, you can do better than that. I want to acknowledge your Virginia Union University Board Chairman, the Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, as well as the members of the Board of Trustees. Give the Board of Trustees a round of applause. So grateful for the leadership of my brother and your president, Dr. Hakeem Lucas. The faculty, the staff, the alumni gathered, the Richmond community, the village. And let's not forget the moms, the dads, praying Big Mama, uncles and aunts, caregivers. It took a whole lot of us to get you here. Give the village a round of applause. And finally, for the mighty class of 2025, come on, let's celebrate them. I'm so grateful to be here. College graduates, college graduations are always special. But as a proud HBCU grad, I know that an HBCU graduation is something really special. It's really a church service in an academic framework. There are not many college graduations you attend and right at the top you hear a song by Hezekiah Walker. Grateful for his brilliance and his leadership, his voice across the years. This is who we are. Joyful warriors for God's love and God's justice in the world. And for 160 years, Virginia Union University has been a beacon of academic achievement, of leadership, and social justice. Born at the dawn of emancipation, people of faith set out to do the unthinkable, to lift those who had not long emerged from the shackles of slavery into an educational enterprise. And all of us are the blessed beneficiaries of that work. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. This is a special day. I want to say to these graduates that I know something about how you feel. I want to convince myself at least that it wasn't that long ago when I sat where you sat. I'm a post-civil rights generation baby born a year after Dr. King's death. But in a very real sense, his spirit summoned me to Morehouse College. I wanted to be where he went. I wanted to be educated at the school he attended. I didn't know I'd become the pastor of the church that he served. God always dreams a dream bigger than the dream we're dreaming for ourselves. But I remember when I arrived on the campus of Morehouse College, another one of our great HBCUs, I didn't have enough money for the first semester. I went to college on a full faith scholarship. Is there anybody here who went to college on a faith scholarship? I arrived on the campus. I didn't have the money for the first semester. My family was short on money, but long on love and long on faith. I watched my father, who was not seminary trained, but was a brilliant and insightful preacher. My dad was a preacher and a junk man. Monday through Friday, he literally loaded old cars on the back of a rig, the mechanisms of which he constructed himself. He was a World War II era veteran. I had an older father. I don't know how he constructed those trucks without an engineering degree, without a physics degree, one car stacked upon another without incident. He took them down to Chatham Steel, so he spent all week lifting up old cars that other folk had thrown away, recycling them, and that's how he took care of his family. But then on Sunday morning, the junk man took off his dirty clothes, put on his work clothes. The man who had spent all week lifting cars that other folk had thrown away stood behind the pulpit and lifted up people that other people had thrown away and reminded them that our God is a junk man. Our God who is the God who sees treasure in other people's trash. Our God is a God who makes a way out of no way. Our God is an equal opportunity employer who understands that there is brilliance and acumen and promise and possibility all over town on both sides of the track. And that your outcome ought not be based on your parents' income. And so my folks, both Pentecostal preachers. My mother grew up in Waycross, Georgia, picking somebody else's tobacco, picking somebody else's cotton. But they gave me what I needed. They gave me love. They gave me faith. They were always talking about this God. They were always talking about what God was up to in the world. My folks, it seemed to me, spoke in King James English. My mama said, "Thou shalt wash the dishes, lest I smite thee with my rod and my staff. And even the Lord God himself shall not save you from the wrath of mama." And so when I arrived on campus, graduates not having enough money really for the first semester, and then there were these other guys who were doing well, coming from great families. My classmate over there, Ivan Hicks, he was already dressed to the nines. And I looked at my dad just wanting a few dollars to buy some books. True story. My dad of blessed memory looked at me and said, "Silver and gold hath I none." I mean, who talks like that? "But such as I have, I give unto thee. The grace of the Lord Jesus go with you, son." He gave me a great big hug. My mama gave me a great big hug. They got in the car, drove off into the horizon, and left me standing there. But 4 years later, some of those guys that I knew who were already driving fancy cars before taking the first class, they were driving past the graduation stage. I was standing on the graduation stage getting my degree. And so class of 2025, here you are. I don't know what you had to go through to get here, but here you are. You are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Here you are. God had a plan for you. And here you are walking into your destiny. We're so very proud of you. You have crossed the river. The ocean is in front of you, but you've crossed the river, and that itself deserves applause and celebration. Here you are. But I don't want to sugarcoat things. These are difficult days. There are those who are trying to erase us. There are those who are trying to erase our story, not recognizing that black history is American history. W.E.B. Du Bois, that towering intellectual of the 20th century, said it well: where would America be without its Negro people? But you cannot erase us. All over this land are the fingerprints of our genius and our resilience and our commitment. Some folk live inside of an irony that they do not understand. The very man who is engaged in an assault against diversity, equity, and inclusion lives every day inside of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can't be that much opposed to it. You're living in a White House constructed by black hands. You live inside of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it takes all of us for America to be as great as it ought to be. A while ago, I was at the DeKalb Peachtree Airport in Georgia, and there was a young man that I shall never forget. His name was Ezekiel. And Ezekiel had that light in his eye. He had that light you want to see. When a child finds and figures out the reason they were born. Don't you love to see that? When something stirs the intellectual curiosity of a young person and puts them on a path that leads to purpose and possibility. Ezekiel wanted to be a pilot, and he had the aptitude to be a pilot. He had that thing that Howard Thurman talks about. Howard Thurman said, "Ask not what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. But here he was on the path wanting to be a pilot, but 10 years later he was still on the path, having spent $100,000 of his own money. Not because of a lack of ability, but because we have not made the path as smooth as it ought to be. We right now have a shortage of pilots. We have a shortage of aviation mechanics. We have a shortage of air traffic controllers. I'm just talking about in the aviation space. So we've made it too hard for that young man to fly. And so when I met him, I got busy and I wrote a bill called Airways, so that we can begin to tap into the brilliance of our young people beginning in kindergarten and grade school, so that all of our children can know that they too can fly. The president did not recognize the irony and the tragedy of what he was saying when that plane crashed into the Potomac. And without even an investigation, he said, "I know what crashed this plane. It was DEI." Well, Mr. President, 96% of the pilots today are white. Only 4% of them are women. I don't know what crashed that plane, but it certainly was not diversity. And don't you know that it takes all of us to fly? You can't fly with one wing, the right wing or the left wing. You got to have both wings, the left and the right. It takes Republicans and Democrats. It takes all of us to fly, and I want to see America fly. That's why I want all of us to have a chance. That's why I've worked hard and secured as much as $7 billion so far for historically black colleges and universities, because herein is the potential and the promise and the possibility of our country. So all of us can fly. Virginia Union graduates, ask not what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. And go and do that. Burn the midnight oil. Engage in the discipline of intellectual inquiry as a spiritual exercise. Trying to discover all that God has opened up for us. And our country needs us now more than ever. When I look at all of this hate, all of this bigotry, all of this racism, all of this sexism, all of this classism, yes, all of this homophobia and transphobia, because hate is hate. And there's no such thing as equal justice for some. Y'all got quiet when I said that. But either we believe in equality or we do not. Either we believe in justice or we do not. Either we believe in inclusivity or we do not. I believe that of one blood God has made all nations to dwell upon the face of the earth. And so that's what HBCUs are all about. They're about books, but it's not just books. It's about building leaders with a conscience. These institutions have changed the world, and we're going to need you right about now. Anytime you have young students snatched off the street, Ramesa Ozturk, that young woman snatched off the street in the middle of the night by unmarked officers, taken somewhere and folks didn't know where she was. You ought to be concerned about that. You ought to be deeply offended by that. Anytime the mayor of Newark can be arrested for standing up, anytime members of Congress can be roughed up just for offering oversight and asking questions, we are in a dystopian moment, and we had better raise our voices because our very lives depend on it. Now is not the time to be silent. Now is the time to speak truth to power. Now is the time to stand up for that grand American covenant, e pluribus unum, out of many one. Martin Niemöller said, having lived through that Nazi era, that Protestant pastor, Martin Niemöller, said, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak because I was not a socialist. They came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. They came for the Jews, and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me. And there was nobody left to speak. And so we're not conferring on you, class of 2025, these degrees just for you to focus on yourself. I want you to do well. I want you to prosper. But anybody who is obsessed with himself or herself will lose yourself. Jesus said that if you try to save your own life, you'll lose your life. But if you give your life over to me, if you would give your life over to something bigger than yourself, you'll actually find yourself. Your life's project must be bigger than your lifespan. If your life's project can be completed during your lifetime, then you're thinking too small. Imagine what is possible and seek after it with all of your might. Take it from me, you never know what God has in store. And so these are dark and difficult times, but I'm not about to give up. I'm not about to go somewhere and curl up in a ball and cry. You can't shut down for the next 4 years. Now's the time to stand up. We've seen tough times before. When I was born, Georgia was represented by 2 very effective senators. They were effective in the sense that they brought home good things for Georgia. But they were both arch segregationists. When I was born, I was represented by 2 senators who were segregationists. One said, we love the Negro in his place. And his place is at the back door. Well, I came this morning to testify and tell you that I sit in his seat. And the other senator was so effective, so legendary, that of 3 Senate buildings, 1 is named after him. And when I got elected to the Senate, they put my office in the building named after him. And after I won 5 elections in 2.5 years and got a full term, they said, Senator, you're going up in seniority now, you can get a bigger office. Maybe you should move to another building, and eventually I did. But I had to stay there for just a little while. I like the poetic, prophetic irony of being in the building named for the segregationist senator who was senator when I was born. And I said, I got to stay here for just a little while because after all, his statue is in the rotunda of this building. And so on my way to my appointments, on my way to my office, every now and then on my way to my next thing, whatever that is, even though I'm on my way to somewhere else, I have to pass by his statue just to get to where I'm going. As we say in church, you missed that. I have to pass by his statue in order to get to where I'm going. And every now and then as I'm passing by his statue, I look back at him and I say, how you like me now? Through many dangers, toils and snares, I've already come. 'Twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us on. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our parents sighed.
Come on, you got to stand and say thank you to our senator. Somebody turn your neighbor and say, neighbor, how do you like me now? All of you need to find your statue and go walk by it. All right.